It's no secret kids spend a lot of face time with technology, but a new study coming out today says they're spending about as much time with media outlets as they do sleeping. This alarming overexposure could impact a child's overall health. Terry Reith is our health reporter. He joins us, of course, from Edmonton this morning. Terry, there have been a lot of studies looking at the effects of media on children. How is this one different?
Well, Anne-Marie, what this one does is it takes all those other studies done over the past 5 to 10 years and puts them all together. You know, we often hear the expression, you can't see the forest for the trees. Well, this in a very detailed way describes what the media forest looks like for us now. And in many cases, it's not very pretty at all. You know, you talk about things like media violence. Well, the average teenager on TV alone sees about 200,000 violent acts by the time they turn 18. You know, it's often sanitized, often glamorized. You throw in there your first-person shooter games and your video games. Now, that's an awful lot of violence. And what the authors of this study is saying is that many times it is able to influence a child or a young adult's behavior. You know, they talk about things like smoking, which we can get to as well. You know, not every smoker is going to get cancer, but some will, and that's the same sort of analogy they're using there. Now, speaking of smoking, there's a whole lot of substance abuse that we also see on the tube and in video games and that sort of thing. So there's another warning there. And one of the more startling is, of course, all-round sex. You know, 50% of teenagers by the time they turn 18, between the ages of 10 and 18, 50% have seen real hardcore pornography online. And once again, there are studies that show that that leads to a shift in sexual behavior, a lot more liberal attitudes towards sex, engaging in sex a whole lot earlier. So those are just a few of the examples that they talk about in this study, where children, by the influence of media, and we're talking television, internet, games, social networking, cell phones, anything with a screen, as they like to put it, is really influencing a lot of behavior.
Yeah, and this study it is quite in depth, and it goes into, you know, not only the amount of time they watch, but the content, as you mentioned, what they watch. But it also points out some positive effects of media, because as you say, anything with a screen, kids have access. Most of the things they have access to have screens now.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, yeah, and not everything on TV is garbage by any stretch of the imagination. And the authors do make a point there, that if you're watching really good programming, there can be some really positive social messages embedded in that on the internet. There is some good information out there if you know where to look at it. And so that comes down to some of the recommendations that they have. You know, for instance, for parents, take the TV set out of your kid's bedroom. That's bad news. And monitor what they're watching. Sit down and watch it with them. Talk about it. Talk with them about it. And be more aware. And for schools even, what the authors say here is, with the amount of sexual content that teens and kids are seeing now, there's no excuse not to have comprehensive sex education and to talk about some of the responsibilities that come with sex, and by all means talk about birth control as well.
Thanks, Terry.